Hi, my name is Heather, and I'm presenting an ethical dilemma about a case of negligence. The question I'm trying to answer today: are teachers responsible for student safety? There's a hypothetical case that I was assigned by my professor about the PE rope, in which a teacher presented a unit on rope climbing. She hung a rope from the gym ceiling to the gym floor. During lunch, she placed a sign on the door not to enter if she isn't there, but she didn't lock the door because she planned to return within minutes. A student entered anyway and climbed the rope unsupervised, which resulted in serious injury. The question is she responsible for student safety? Did she have any liability, possibly legally, for this injury that occurred? In Texas, we have an administrative code regarding the ethical conduct towards students. Standard 3.2 says the educator shall not recklessly endanger the safety of a student or minor. We also have Standard 3.5 that says the educator shall not recklessly neglect a student or minor. We also have the National Education Association, which people look to for a code of ethics for education profession. And that principle I-414 says, in fulfillment of the obligation to the student, the educator shall make a reasonable effort to protect the student from conditions harmful to learning or health and safety. So the ethically relevant issue is the PE teacher responsible for the serious injury that occurred? I would have to have some more questions answered, like who was responsible for the student at the time? Obviously, the PE teacher was going to lunch. She felt like no one was going to be there. She put a note on the door. But who was responsible for the student? Was the student wandering? Were they supposed to be in the gym? And what was the student's age or developmental level or grade? In other words, were they able to read and understand the sign that was left on the door? Who is affected by this injury? Obviously, the student and their family would have economic, mental, emotional, and physical effects of this injury. PE teacher and coworkers might have to undergo training and have the extra stress of the situation, and administrators at the school and the school district would possibly have a lawsuit on their hands and an investigation to undertake because of this injury. Possible courses of action that I could take if I were in a supervisory role: I could install an automatic lock on the gym door, so that the teacher would have to manually hold the door open to let students in. Otherwise, when it closed, it would lock students out. They could always push the door to get back into the hallway from the gym. The teachers could lock the door manually every time they left. They could take down the PE rope when they're not using it or when they're not supervising in the gym. And then there could possibly be corrective action for the PE teacher. Consequences for those courses of action. In the short term, and ongoing, and the long term, teachers could have more duties that they would have to perform in order to make sure that the gym doors were locked, the equipment was put away. They could have more psychological stress as a result of that, which would be a potential cost. Socially, I don't think it would affect the teachers. I don't think there would be ramifications economically because the door locks cost almost nothing. But there would be potential costs for the teacher and the administrators if there was corrective action that had to be taken that resulted in the teacher losing her job. She could be psychologically affected, she could be socially affected by the stigma, and she could be economically affected by losing her job. So there are 4 elements to determine if the teacher is legally responsible for student injury. The first is the duty to protect. There is something called in loco parentis, which means in place of the parents. This has been used for decades to prove that teachers are responsible for the safety of students while they are at school and out of the supervision of their parents. So you'd have to prove that the teacher was in charge. Secondly, you'd have to prove that there was a breach of duty, that she did not provide a standard of reasonable care. And in order to prove reasonable care, it would have to be taken into account her training, her level of experience, the student's age and level, the environment of the injury, the instructional activity occurring at the time of the injury, the proximity of the teacher, and then the special needs of the student, if any. Then proximate cause would have to be proved to prove that the teacher's breach of duty caused the student's injury. And last, there would have to be a verifiable injury, physical or mental, that must have occurred in order for the teacher to be legally responsible for the student injuries as far as a lawsuit. It can't be an imagined or unproven injury. So the courses of action that I talked about, putting an automatic log or manually logging the door, putting the equipment up when it's not in use or when the teachers are not actively supervising, and then corrective action. Did the teacher breach her duties? In this case, I would say so. I would think that door would need to have been locked to prevent that. A sign on the door that students may or may not have been able to read or see, I don't think would have been adequate. Did she need corrective action? I would need to see a school district's handbook for disciplinary action procedures. And then for injury prevention, those safety policies that I talked about earlier could be very helpful in making sure that this doesn't happen again. Again, for the question, this is in compliance with the ethical standards, the Texas Administrative Code, and the National Education Association. And for the question, are teachers responsible for student safety? These are the references that I used. Thanks and have a great day.